All right, we're going to begin by looking at our Chapter 2 practice test, going over each one of these questions. So please take a look at any of them that you need. And if you still have questions, make sure you contact Mr. Jordan or myself before your test. Number 1 says, what is the graph of y equals 2x plus 3? What I notice first is that this is in slope-intercept form. So that means it's in y equals mx plus b form. So I begin at the y-intercept. My graph doesn't have an x and a y-axis, so the first thing I'm going to do is draw that in. And you can draw it anywhere you'd like on here that will fit your data. And so in this case, since it's plus 3, I'm going to the 3 on the y-axis and plotting my point. Then I look at my slope, which tells me how to move. In this case, it's a 2, and I want it to be a fraction, so I'm going to put it over 1, since that leaves it still being a 2, which means I'm going to rise 2 and run to the right 1 point. And knowing that, then I can connect those to get my line. Number 2 says, which of the following is an equation of the line through the points 3, -1, and -2, 14? Because I'm given 2 points, the first thing I need to do is use my slope formula to find those. And so our slope formula says y minus y divided by x minus x. So in this case, I'm going to take 14 minus -1 over -2 minus 3. You could also have done that -1 minus 14 and 3 minus -2. When I see a double negative together, I'm going to clean that up by making it a plus. And so 14 plus 1 becomes 15. And then -2 minus 3 becomes -5. And then anytime I have a slope, I want to simplify if I can. So 15 divided by -5 gives me a slope of -3. Now, on this particular problem, when I come over and look at my answer choices, there's only one problem that has a slope of -3. So I can feel pretty confident that that is my choice. But if you're a cautious person, you can continue to finish out this equation by now using point slope formula. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So in this case, I'm going to choose the point 3, -1. So y minus a -1 is equal to -3 times x minus 3. Cleaning up that double negative again and then distributing, I end up with y plus 1 is equal to -3x plus 9. And then subtracting 1 on each side, I do in fact end up with -3x plus 8. So now I feel even more confident that D is the correct answer. All right, number 3 says, what is an equation of the vertical line that passes through the point -2, -9? What's important for me to remember here is that a vertical line is always in the form of x equals, and a horizontal line is always in the form of y equals. And I remember that because if I flip that y upside down, it kind of looks like an H. And so y goes with horizontal, x goes with vertical. Once I remember that, I just come over to my point and figure out which of these is the x. And remembering x comes before y in an ordered pair, I'm going to write the equation of x equals -2. If I was asked for a horizontal line through this same point, I know it's y equals, so then I would choose the y value, y equals -9. All right, number 4, write an equation in point slope form. So again, point slope form is that y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm given the point -2, -1, so I can go ahead and put that into my formula, y minus -1 equals and x minus -2. I can even go ahead and clean those up because minus negatives become plus positives, but I'm missing my slope. So how do I go about finding my slope in this problem? Well, because they've given me a graph, I'm going to choose 2 points on that graph that meet at nice corners of boxes, and I'm going to count the rise and the run between those 2 boxes. So choosing any of these points, if I look at this, I rise 1, 2, and I run 1. And since I went down 2, my slope is going to be -2 over 1. Or you could just write that as y plus 1 is equal to negative 2 times x plus 2. There would be my equation in point slope form. Moving on, number 5, again, it says write an equation in point slope form. So point slope form, because this one's multiple choice, I'm going to take a look. I notice it goes through the point negative 210 and has a slope of negative 4. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look and I'm going to see that choice A does not have a slope of negative 4. It's positive 4. The same is true of choice C. So those two I can eliminate right off the bat. Then I'm going to come down and choose either B or D. So what I need to remember is the formula says y minus y1 is equal to slope times x minus x1. The only time those become positive is if I am putting in a negative number, so having that negative number. So when I put the y value in, it would be y minus 10. And when I put the x value in, it would be x minus a negative 2, which would turn it into a positive 2. So looking carefully at my choices now between B and D, I would want to choose answer choice D. One more in this form, number 6, says what is an equation in point slope form? This time they don't tell me the slope, so that's got to be my first step, is to find the slope. So finding slope is found by taking the y minus y over x minus x. So in this case, I'm going to take negative 4 minus 5 over negative 1 minus 2. Negative 4 minus 5 becomes negative 9, and negative 1 minus 2 becomes negative 3, and negative 9 divided by negative 3 becomes a positive 3. So I know my slope is 3. So I come over and look at my choices. Every one of them has a slope of 3. So that didn't help me eliminate a choice, but it did help me find my slope. All right, now I'm going to write my equation, and I can use either point that I want. However, because it's a multiple choice question, let's take a look and see what the choices have to help me determine which point I want. It looks like every one of them is using the points 1 and 4. So it looks like I'm going to use this point negative 1, negative 4. Now, because these answer choices look so very similar, I'm going to choose to write the equation by myself and then come over and try to match it so that I don't get confused by a positive or a negative or something like that. So starting with y minus the y value, that's negative 4. My slope is 3. And then x minus the x value is negative 1. Cleaning it up, I'm going to change those minus negatives to plus positives. So I'm looking for a y plus 4 and an x plus 1. Looks like that is answer choice C. All right, when we get to question 7, we switch gears just a little bit. It says, what is the graph of 4x plus 8y equals 18? What I notice about this one is one is not in slope-intercept form. So graphing in slope-intercept form is not going to be my best option. What I do notice is this one is in standard form. And so the easiest way to graph in standard form is to find the x-intercept and then find the y-intercept. So to find the x-intercept, we put a 0 in for y. So I get 4x plus 8 times 0 is equal to 16. 8 times 0 is eliminated, and I get 4x is equal to 16. And then dividing by 4 on each side, I get x is equal to 4. On the other side, when I look to find the y-intercept, I put a 0 in for x so that I eliminate that and just have my y value. So 4 times 0 is eliminated, and I get 8y is equal to 16. Divide each side by 8, and I get y is equal to 2. Now I'm ready to graph. So again, I need my x and my y axis. Again, I can draw that wherever I want as long as it fits my data. I want an x-intercept of 4, which means it's going to cross the x-axis at 4. So I'll put my point there. And a y-intercept of 2, meaning it's going to cross my y-axis at 2. And once I have those 2 points, I can go ahead and draw my line, showing that this is the line that fits that equation. All right, number 8 says write the equation of the line in point slope form again. So we're going back to point slope. That y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. I'm given 2 points this time, so I'm going to take a minute and find the slope. So slope is found by taking y minus y over x minus x. In this case, I'm going to do 5 minus 4 over negative 1 minus negative 2. I'm going to clean that double negative up by adding, and so 5 minus 4 becomes 1. And negative 1 plus 2 also becomes 1, so it looks like I have a slope of 1. Now, using either point, so I'm going to show you 2 different ways you could write this answer. If I use the first point, my answer would be y minus 4 is equal to 1 times x minus a negative 2, or clean that up and make it positive 2. If you used the second point, you would have y minus 5 is equal to 1 times x minus negative 1, which again turns to a positive 1. I would accept either of these answers on problem number 8. All right, moving on to number 9. This one kind of reflects back to number 7. It's asking for the x-intercept and the y-intercept. And so starting with this one, if I'm finding the x-intercept, I'm going to put a 0 in for y. That eliminates that term, and I'm left with 5x is equal to 20. Dividing each side by 5, I get x is equal to 4, telling me my x-intercept is at 4. So to me, it looks like choice B, but just because I'm cautious and want to make sure, I'm going to also find the y-intercept here. And so when I find the y-intercept, I'm going to put a 0 in for x. That eliminates that term, and I get 8y is equal to 20. And divide each side by 8, and I get y is equal to 20/8, which would also be 10/4, which would also be 5/2, or 2.5, either one, but that answer or matches then choice B. Number 10, when we read this, it says Jake needs to buy 120 beverages for a party. What equation in standard form, so that's an important piece, determines the number x of 8 packs of juice and the number y of 12 packs of water he can buy? So since x stands for the 8 packs, we're going to say 8x. And since y stands for the 12 packs, we're going to say 12y. And that equals a total of 120 beverages. There's our equation in standard form. That's all we have to do on number 10. Number 11 then asks for us to use that situation. It should actually say from number 10 and figure out which choices actually work. So what this means is these are the x values and y values that we're going to try out. So when I look at choice A, I would take 8 times 0 plus 12 times 10, and I would ask myself, does that equal 120? Well, 8 times 0 is 0, and 12 times 10 is 120. It does, in fact, equal 120, so A would be a good selection that I could choose. However, this also says that I need to select all that apply, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to choice B. When I look at choice B, I would substitute in 7.5 and 5, so 8 times 7.5 plus 12 times 5. And using my calculator, I do in fact find out that that does equal 120. So if I were just looking at this as a mathematical equation, then B would absolutely be a solution. However, when I look at this as a choice of buying packages of juice, I don't know very many stores that will allow me to go in and buy 7.5 packs of juice. And so although these numbers work, they don't work in this story. And so I'm going to cross B out. All right, moving on to C, I'm going to try 8 times 12 plus 2, 8 times 12 plus 12 times 2. I'm going to try that out in my calculator. I do, in fact, find out that that turns out to be 120. So that is also an option. I could buy 12 packs of juice and 2 packages of water. And then finally, choice D, I'm going to check 8 times 30 plus 12 times negative 10. It does, again, in fact, turn out to be 120, but again, does this one make sense? Would it make sense that I can go into a store and buy negative 10 packs of water? No, and so I'm going to cross D out as a viable choice. All right, numbers 12 and 13 both use the same kind of idea here. They did say determine whether these lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Guys, when we see those words parallel, perpendicular, or neither, what we need to remind ourselves is we are looking for slope. What we know about slopes is if two slopes are the same, we know the lines are parallel. If two slopes are opposite reciprocals, we know they are perpendicular. And if neither of those things is true, we know that the lines intersect at some point, but just not in a special way. So I need to look at these two lines and determine what their slopes are. So starting with the first one, I've got x plus 7y is equal to negative 3. Guys, this one is written in standard form, and standard form does not tell me slope. So I need to change this to a different form in order for me to determine what the slope is. So I think the easiest is to change it to slope-intercept form. And so to do that, I'm going to work on getting y by itself. So I'm moving the x to the other side, and I get 7y is equal to negative x minus 3. Then I'm dividing each side by 7. And I end up with y is equal to negative 1/7 x minus 3/7. Now I know the slope of this first line is negative 1/7. The second line, however, is a little bit easier. It's already in slope-intercept form. So when it's in slope-intercept form, it tells me the slope. It's right there attached to the x. It is 7. So what I'm doing right now is I'm comparing negative 1/7 to 7. They're definitely not the same slope, but they are opposite reciprocal slopes, because remember, opposite means one is positive, one is negative, and reciprocal means we've taken and flipped it. And so if you look at 7 over 1, if you flip it, it would become 1 over 7. So because they are opposite reciprocal slopes, I'm going to say that these two lines are perpendicular. All right, number 13 uses the same concepts. It says which lines are perpendicular to 6x plus 18y equals 5. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find the slope of 6x plus 18y is equal to 5 so that I can see what I'm looking for. So I'm going to do that by solving for y. So I'm going to move the 6x to the other side. And I'm left with 18y is equal to negative 6x plus 5. Then I'm going to divide each side by 18, and I get y is equal to, now I'm just simplifying, negative 6 divided by 18 would be negative 1/3 x, and then my y-intercept would be 5/18. Really, I'm not concerned about the y-intercept on this. I'm concerned about the slope. So the slope of the original line is negative 1/3. So if I'm looking for things that are perpendicular, I'm looking for things that have the opposite reciprocal slope. And so negative 1/3, if I flip that over, it becomes 3 over 1. And since negative 1/3 is negative, I'm going to make this one positive. And so I'm looking for things that have a slope of positive 3 over 1. All right, so looking at answer choice A, has a slope of 3 over 1. B, although we may think that has a slope of 3, that is not a slope because that one's not in slope-intercept form. X by itself is a vertical line, and so that's just a vertical line. All right, down here, C, this one's written in point slope form, but it also has a slope of 3, so C would also be a good choice. And D is back to slope-intercept, or back to standard, so I'm going to need to work on that one. So 3x plus 9y is equal to 8. I'd start by subtracting 3x from each side, and I'd get 9y is equal to negative 3x plus 8. When I divide each side by 9, I find out the slope is negative 1/3 x plus 8/9. Negative 1/3, that would actually be parallel to my original, not perpendicular. So I'm just going to choose choices A and C. All right, finishing up. Number 14 says, what Write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form that passes through the point negative 111 and is parallel to this graph. So because they give me a point, I'm going to start in point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. I'm going to use the point they gave me, y minus 11, and x minus a negative 1. But to find my slope, since they don't tell me that, I have to use this clue that it's parallel to this line. So because it's parallel, it has the same slope, so I'm putting that negative 8 in its position. Now, I'm going to clean this up by doing the minus negative turning into plus positive. And then this question asks for my final answer in slope-intercept form. So in those two easy steps of distributing negative 8x and minus 8, and then adding the 11 over, I will get this final equation in slope-intercept form, y equals negative 8x plus 3. All right, last but not least, number 15 says, what is the y-intercept of this line? Guys, it's not in slope-intercept form, so looking at it as I see, I don't know what the y-intercept is. It's in point-slope form, so I'm going to do those 2 quick steps to get it in slope-intercept form so I can find the y-intercept. So distributing over, I get negative 4x, and then negative 4 times 3.5 is negative 14. And then I'm going to subtract 4 on each side, and I end up with y is equal to negative 4x minus 18. Now that it's in slope-intercept form, I can very easily find that the y-intercept is at negative 18. All right, guys, I hope that helps. Make sure you're asking questions if you've got them, or if you get stuck, let Mr. Jordan or myself know, and we will be happy to help you. Study hard.